office, deportations, yes, so this meeting is recorded. So deportations have been on the rise, and Filipinos have been among those specifically targeted. With a recent investigation by the Philippine Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, finding that cruise ship workers that were recently detained and deported by ICE were quote unquote not randomly selected, mean to say that they were specifically targeted. So tonight we're going to hear directly from Filipinos who have been recently deported, their families, and their community advocates, demanding for the dignified treatment of all migrants, as well as a comprehensive plan from the Philippine government to support, defend, and protect its overseas nationals. So tonight we'll be hearing from Jane on behalf of Lola Bebi, Kuya Zanar, Ligaya, and Tita Esther. So if we could go back to the previous slides, please, on where we stand. So I'll just give a brief overview on where we stand today with different cuts to healthcare and other social assistance under the so-called One Big Beautiful Act and 1% tax on remittances. So yung mga padala po natin, matataksan na starting 2026 for all non-US citizens amid escalating ICE arrests and surveillance. So these cuts to Medicaid, which will most likely lead to 11 million people losing coverage. And cuts to Medicaid also means cuts to healthcare facilities and hospitals, which employ many Filipinos. So alam naman po natin that many Filipinos are in healthcare. In addition, this will also cause cuts to SNAP food assistance when 26% of Filipino households receive some sort of insurance coverage or social assistance. And as was mentioned, this will cause greater economic burden on all immigrants. There's 1% tax on remittances from all non-citizens starting 2026. And this is no small number, no? In 2024 alone, the Philippines received 38 billion US dollars worth of remittances globally. And the US remains to be the highest sender of remittances. And this will also cause increased costs for visas and naturalization of family members. We're also seeing ICE given access to data of Medicaid enrollees to help them track immigrants and increase funding to immigration enforcement overall, making it more funded than some global militaries. So if you can go to the next slide, please. But despite this situation, we need to take stock of our victories and celebrate our wins. So the Tanggol Migrante Movement has had several wins with the successful releases of our kababayan. In May, Ate Michelle and Llewellyn Dixon, or Auntie Lynn, was released from the Northwest Detention Center in Washington State, thanks to community efforts with Tanggol Migrante Movement orgs, as well as unions like the SEIU. And in July, Kuya Maximo Londoño was also released from NWDC, thanks to TMM and his union, IAM Local 695. You can go to the next slide, please. And despite these victories, we still continue to fight for our kababayan that are still detained. Kuya R remains in detention with a hearing on August 20th. And Chicago-based Tanggol Migrante Movement orgs continue to fight for kababayan like Tito Ernie, whose hearing is just a week after on August 27th, and Tita Rebecca, whose final hearing is on September 4th, a week after that. And then we know of Kuya Sunny, who recently got detained and who joins Alma Bowman at the Stewart Detention Center in Georgia. And Alma Bowman herself is now suing ICE over her unconstitutional detention, even if she had like a credible claim to US citizenship. We can go to the next slide, please. But at the same time, we also navigate, our losses and setbacks. Despite our community's best efforts, some of our kababayan, still unfortunately fall through the cracks. And with the neglect of the Philippine government, compounding with increasingly hostile attacks of the US, today we're going to hear from 3 of the Filipino migrants who were either deported or reluctantly opted for quote-unquote voluntary departure, as if they were really given a choice, and to see how the effects of this trauma ripple outward to impact their family and their community. Some of them received letters threatening their abrupt removal, and others languished in appalling conditions for years before receiving the devastating news. These are their stories. We're going to hear from their stories and their current precarious situations back home, a home that they have not been in decades. And lastly, this is also in the face and in the context of just sheer incompetence and heartlessness from the supposed representatives of the Philippine government here. So this is direct quote from GMA News, quoting New York Consul General Senan Mangalile in the New York Consulate General Media Hour. So he said that going back to the Philippines is as simple as buying a ticket and boarding a plane. So imagine that, so appalling. And he said that all you need to do is if your passport has complications, go to the consulate and get a travel document. And that this is if you have quote unquote no hope or no legal claim whatsoever. So this is what we're up against as Tanggol Migrante Movement, as we demand for accountability, not just from the US government for this immigration crackdown, but for the Philippine government that chooses to do nothing as our people suffer. So with that, again, we're going to be hearing from Jane on behalf of Lola Bebi, Kuya Zenar, Ligaya, and Tita Esther. And lastly, before I pass it on, again, for those that just joined, this press con is being recorded and live streamed. To minimize disruptions, everyone is muted. Please be respectful in the chat. Please send for members of the press, please send your outlet affiliation and send your email address and questions to the person named Media Liaison. And last reminder for the press and for all in attendance, we will not be taking questions tonight related to personal convictions. So again, for the members of the press and the audience that do have questions, please do send your affiliation and the question to the account that is named Media Liaison. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Jane to give her testimony as the daughter of Lola Bebi. Jane?
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, you're sounding good.
Testing, testing.
Yes, all clear.
Yeah, okay. A fight against fear, a fight against injustice, a fight against a system that tears families apart. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Jane Calloway, and I am the daughter of Flavia Cahoon. It started as an ordinary day. My dad went to the mailbox, soaring through bills and junk mail when he found the letter from ICE. He opened it and froze. Inside was an appointment notification for my mom, Flavia Cahoon, known to all of us as BB, to report to deportation office in 3 weeks' time. He knew immediately what it meant, and he didn't know how to tell her, the woman he has loved and protected for decades, that her worst nightmare had returned. When my dad finally shared the terrible news, fear gripped my mom instantly. Not just the fear of deportation, but the fear of a death sentence if she were detained and sent back to a detention center. She had already endured a detention center once before and barely survived. She knew exactly what awaited her if she were sent back. The system, so broken, so inhumane, strips women like her of everything, discards them as though they have never mattered. When my dad called me to tell me, I tried to hold it together, but when I hung up the phone, I collapsed. My daughter was at her father's house, and I was alone. I couldn't breathe. I called my best friend, but she couldn't find any words. Because what can you say when the country you love is about to destroy your family? This wasn't grief like losing someone to illness. This was rage. This was injustice. Because my mom had done everything right. She fought to be here. She loved her community, served her community, and contributed to this country in every way she could. She paid her taxes, obeyed the laws, raised her family, and gave back with everything she had. And still, here we are. 3 days before the appointment, my mom's lawyer and my dad went to the immigration office and begged. The officer, without saying it directly, told them it was over. That no matter how strong her case was, and it was strong, it would be denied. He admitted he barely did his job anymore, that he simply passed the paperwork up the chain of where Trump's pawns made decisions without even reading it. And he warned them if my mother showed up to her appointment, she would be arrested. So my mom made the most painful decision of her life. Faced with two choices, detention with her medical condition could very well mean death, or leaving. She chose to leave. Anya and I spent her final night in the United States helping her pack. I checked and rechecked her bags, paranoid she might forget something. I was still in denial. My mom, my best friend, was about to be gone. No longer 15 minutes away. I hugged her, I stroked her hair, and I told her she was the strongest person I knew. That she was my hero. That she deserved peace, not a lifetime spent fighting an immigration error already proven wrong, but never corrected by a system that refused to care. So I stand before you with the weight of a breaking truth, heartbreaking truth, one that crushes the spirit of every Filipino, including my mother. Thousands of us have worked, built lives, and dreamed of a future here, only to see it all shattered by a brutal immigration system that tears families apart. And what does our government do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. My mother is a strong and loving woman. She followed the rules, worked hard, and believed in the American dream with every fiber of her being. For years, she fought in the courts, drained her savings, and pleaded for the simple chance to remain in the place that had become her home. She gave this country her loyalty, her labor, her love. Yet after decades of building a life here, it all came crashing down with one single piece of paper. One single piece of paper, cold words typed in black ink, a notice dressed up as a procedure, but carrying the weight of exile that shattered everything. One piece of paper that erased decades of sacrifice as they meant nothing. One piece of paper that told her she was no longer welcome in the only country that had ever truly felt like home. After decades in the US, my mother was torn from the arms of her husband, her daughter, her granddaughter, and sent back to a country that no longer felt like home. In Philippines, with no safety nets and a failing healthcare system, she struggles every day. Her health deteriorates because she cannot access the medical care she needs. Each time she requires a doctor, she must board a bus at midnight just to reach a clinic. This is the life she was forced to return to because of one single piece of paper. Where is the support? Where is the Philippine government when its people need them most? Where is the help for those forced to return with shattered hopes, broken dreams, and nothing left to hold on to? Nowhere. They are abandoned. And she is not alone. Thousands of Filipinos are scattered across the Philippines, surviving without help, without dignity, forgotten by their own country, forgotten by their own government. This is not just a foreign problem, this is our problem. The Philippine government has the power to protect its citizens, to fight for them when they are wronged, to help them rebuild. Instead, they stand idly by while families like mine are left to pick up the pieces. The US has taken so much from the Philippines: our land, our resources, our people. Our men and women have served in the US Armed Forces, fighting battles far from home, while American military presence continues to dominate Philippine soil. It is time for the Philippine government to demand more respect, more justice, more commitment to safeguarding the rights and dignity of its citizens. We deserve leaders who will stand up and reclaim what is rightfully ours. This is not only a failure of the US government, this is a failure of Philippine leaders. We have been betrayed, abandoned by those who were elected to protect their people. And as my mother fights for her life and her dignity in a broken system back in Philippines, we must confront a painful question. What kind of country are we? Are we a nation that abandons its own? A nation that turns its back while its people suffer? No, we are better than this. We will finally rise, demand justice, and refuse to be silenced. We are a nation built on love, on family, on support. It is time we show the world who we really are. It is time for Philippines to become a place where people don't have to leave, but where they can stay, build, and thrive. It is time for our government to stand up for its citizens, to stop bending to the will of foreign regimes and start protecting its own. To those with the power to make a difference, I say this: you are failing us. You are failing the very people who built this country, but you have the power to fix this. You have the power to change lives. Do not let another day pass while Filipinos suffer, because every day you delay, another family is destroyed by one single piece of paper. Bring them home. Free them from the hell detention centers where dignity is stripped away and hope is crushed. Help them rebuild their lives. Give them the resources to survive. Give them back the dignity they deserve. Dignity that should never have been taken from them in the first place. Enough is enough. The time for change is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. That was such a moving testimony. That was Jane. We heard from Jane, the daughter of Lola Bebby. And truly, as she was so eloquently saying, this is a life and death struggle for our people, a struggle which we're left to fend for ourselves by our very own Philippine government that is spineless and does not stand up for us when we need them the most. So thank you very much again for sharing your testimony. Next up, we'd like to hear from Kuya Zanar.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonar. I'm speaking out today because my story is not just my own. It is a story of many overseas Filipino workers who have been left to struggle alone. I endured time in detention facility, a period that broke me in ways I could never fully explain, physically, emotionally, and mentally. I was pushed to my limit, and I held on hope, believing that once I returned home, I would receive hold on, I would receive the support that I desperately needed to rebuild my life. But that hope quickly faded. The challenges did not end with my release. If anything, they have only grown heavier. My family is also suffering, bearing the weight on financial hardship and emotional toll of our situation. We are struggling just to survive. Uh, Here in the Philippines, I face daily battles to secure even the basic foods, shelter, and a stable livelihood. The truth is, the lifeline I have found has come from the community, Migrant International, and the solidarity of exporters from the US, not from my own government. The love and support from this group have kept me standing, but they cannot replace the duty and responsibility that the Philippine government owes to its people. When I was still in the US, the attention of officer in San Francisco embassy assured me that I will receive assistance from the DSWD here in the Philippines. That promise gave me hope. Yet today, I am still waiting. No aid has come. Each day, without it's another day, my family and I sink deeper into hardship. I speak out, not just to tell my story, but to demand some actions, not only for myself, but for everybody, overseas Filipino worker who sacrifice so much to be met with silence when we needed help the most. We deserve better. We deserve to come home to a country that cares for us. Thank you. That will be all.
Maraming salamat, Kuya Zanar. And tama po kayo, the responsibility of the Philippine government, it does not end once you're deported. In fact, it grows even more when you're back in Philippine soil and in the jurisdiction of the Philippines. At matanong ko lang, no, ito ba ang tinuturing o yung tamang pagtrato sa bagong bayani? They call OFWs the quote-unquote modern-day heroes, and yet this is the treatment that we get. And this is the reason why we continue to fight. So maraming salamat muli Kuya Zanar sa pagbabahagi ng iyong kwento. So we will move on now to Ligaya. So yeah, we'd like to hear from Ligaya, who was detained at the Adelanto Detention Center for 6 years and was deported to the Philippines just this July 31st. So yeah, Ligaya. Oh, nakamute po kayo. You just have to press the microphone icon. There you go.
Hi, my name is Ligaya. I had lived in the United States since 1996. That's June. And I had built my family there and raised my two sons. After serving a 6-year prison term, I was immediately transferred into ICE custody. First, I was locked up in Adelanto Detention Center in California from December 21, 2018 to November 22 of 2023. Then I was transferred to Louisiana Processing Center for a week and then to Eloy Detention Center. It is the worst detention center I've ever been out of the three. After spending more than 6.5 years in ICE detention, fighting to stay with my family, I was ordered removed by an entire system composed of biased immigration judges who considered me unworthy of a single chance to remain made with my family in the United States and disregarded any or all changes or improvements I've made in my life. They do not see me someone like me in a different light, and unanimously they have defined me by my conviction alone, not to grant any kind of mercy, like how God granted to each one of us as people. We are one race, a human race. In detention, I experienced many things. Medical neglect, inhumane treatment, and other abuses that no one should ever go through. I suffered COVID because ICE did not want to abide by the court order to release population so that there will be social distancing. When I was in Eloy, the conditions are even worse. Black mold are in the grouts of the showers that caused also for me to suffer a bad rash. It's a multiple fungal infection that only to be seen by a provider 2 weeks later when it is already had spread all over my arms. The food trays are more like cat or dog food. The real dog food or cat food is even more appetizing than what we are eating. And for every visit, we are forced to go through strip searches. And if we deny those strip searches, we are punished to only get non-contact visits through the glass. The mattresses and pillows are poor supporting kinds, and it causes multiple locations of pain in the hip joints, knee joints, and the lower and upper back, including the neck. Also, the officers there are rude and treat us differently. They look at us like we are less of a human being than them. They think better of themselves. During the Trump administration, Eloy became more overcrowded. What Trump is doing is destroying all the families of immigrants. And I do not know how or why he is doing this. His wife is also an immigrant. To me, it is unfair to see his family different from ours. And all these hard-earned tax dollars of all hardworking individuals across the nation in United States are going toward cruelty and inhumane treatment of immigrants like us. Instead of funding healthcare, education, social services, and other things that would need the country and to thrive with all its communities, the money gets wastefully spent on breaking family units apart by deporting the family providers, and the children become parentless and are left to suffer emotional turmoil that lead them to depend on other things that are not healthy. ICE centers contract enter contracts with facilities that care nothing but maximizing profit by giving the least expensive amount of human and medical care. The food, the shoes, mattress, pillows, bugs that infest our rooms, the food trays and cups that are dirty on a daily basis. We are left to endure this kind of conditions of confinement. We are caged like animals. No business establishment should ever make profit from detained people and their families who end up suffering psychological, emotion, and physical harms. ICE is under the Department of Homeland Security, under the so-called Department of Justice. It ends up being presided over by immigration judges who do not follow the rules and regulations of the drafted immigration laws, and then do whatever they wish to do with their decision and disregard any sorts of positive assets to many immigrants. Those who have changed and greatly improved themselves should be given a chance. What kind of thing is under Department of Justice when where is the real justice in the system? If these presiding authorities do not follow the guidelines and precedents of the federal regulations of the immigration law. Now I'm back in the Philippines. Life is very difficult. The minimum wage is about 695 pesos per day, which is around $11, about $200 a month. Housing alone costs about $150 a month, leaving almost nothing for food, clothing, and other expenses like your utilities. It feels like surviving, not really living. It's a desperate call to have life, not survival. The system has banished me where I can never return to my family. I ask for one chance. I ask for mercy. They know nothing about me. They refuse to see me in a different light. They consider me unworthy of redemption. They broke my family. They broke my heart. I know that we need to fight this. It's not over. We need to fight for the lives of those people like me, like all the other immigrants, not just me, but a lot of the countries all over the world trying to find a better place, a better life for families. And the authorities are stripping us of the life that we love and built. Everything that we have built, They're taking it away. All the taxes that we have paid, it's going to wars, war funds. And I do not believe that we should go into war. We need to better this place. And for someone who has served a prison time, there is a quote that I want to share to everybody. A blemish of an art or a painting is not unworthy of recognition. To see its real beauty is to look beyond the flaw that comes with it. I just want to be seen in a different light, to reunite my family, to heal what is broken, to mend everything. And I do not know what the Philippine consulate is doing. I asked for help from them back in 2021. I did not get anything except $200 from them this year in May. I asked them to negotiate for my release. There is nothing that they have done. Where is the help that we need when we need them? They just stand by and do nothing. $200 is nothing. It should have been better if they negotiated with us, with the government of the United States, so we can earn a living. So before we even go. Right now, I don't have any clothes. The ICE officers refused to give me an answer on of what I can take. I was left with just a backpack with a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and a pair of shoes. Now that I am in here, I got no health care. I don't know what to do. There's no job. I feel dependent. I feel helpless. I am sorry that I am in this place, but I have no choice. But we need to fight and make things right. We need to fight for all detained immigrants. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Gaya. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And yeah, I think a common response we hear in the Filipino community when we raise these concerns, these very real stories, is that, you know, we just need to play by the rules or do it the right way. But as Digaya was sharing, this is truly a biased and racist system that's not built for us, even if, you know, the US is built off our labor as immigrants. Instead, it tosses us aside when it has no more use for us, and like Ligaya said, you know, caging us like animals and tearing apart our families, our lives, and our dreams. So again, thank you, Ligaya, for sharing. So before we move on to the question and answer portion, reminder for the press and all those in attendance, please note your outlet or affiliation and send your contact details and questions to the account named Media Liaison. And final reminder for tonight, we will not take questions related to personal convictions. So with that, we'll move into the question and answer, and I will be passing it to Emily.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Cristobal. I will be going through the questions, but also just a little bit about me. Just hearing these testimonies is incredibly heartbreaking, and from hearing from Bigaya and Kuya Zanar themselves and Jane talking about her mom, it's very resonant with the feelings that my family had feared for my Auntie Lynn when she was going through the process when she was detained. So I just want to thank you all for your bravery and sharing your stories before we move on to the questions.
First of all, the first question that I have is actually for Jane. We're wondering if you could share how is Lola Bedri now? How is she doing, and what concrete support can we give to support her and your family?
My mom, it's go. My
Oh, it's on mute.
I guess you could say one of the fortunate to have my amazing dad who's sitting right beside me to support her from all the way in the States. But her health has always been an issue. Even here, she would probably go to the ER maybe once or twice a month, and it's breathing issues, and so it's been very difficult because her family lives all the way in the province, and so transportation has been very, very hard. And so she had, like I mentioned in my speech, she would have to start her travels to a clinic or a hospital very, very early just to get there and be seen in a reasonable time. If reasonable is a good way to put it, it's still not reasonable to our standards. She is sick at the moment, but she is very strong. And but she's very happy to see her family. But her family themselves need help, and so she's using the resources that is given by my dad to help her family. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yes, thank you, Jane, for sharing that. And, thinking about just the healthcare system in the Philippines, knowing that, this is a compounding effect in which healthcare isn't just as accessible as it was in the US, and not having, your family for support, or even just, your doctor that she's been going to for so long, or any of those healthcare instances, to just be there. Just wanted to add on to that. Is there anything specifically that your family is asking for support for, that we can help as an organization, or that the media organizations can highlight on, to put further accountability on the Philippine government?
Yes, it's the big highlight is to find my birth father, who is the sole responsible for all the troubles that my mom has faced. He was the one who gave the false accusation against her, and we need help finding him. He is in Philippines with, I don't know, wife number how many. He is an American white man, and who is living in Philippines for many years. And so my mom's goal is to find him, bring him to the Philippine consulate, and have him say that he was lying from the very beginning.
Yes, thank you for that, Jane. Moving on to the next question. This is for Ligaya and Kuya Zinar. You both shared how difficult it has been to find a livelihood since returning to the Philippines. Yet the Philippine government continues to urge Filipinos vulnerable to ICE detention to, quote, voluntarily depart and just go home. What would you say to the Philippine government about this message? And what kind of support should they be providing to migrants who are forced to be apart from their families? Ligaya, if you could answer first. I think you're on mute, sorry.
When I first asked them to help me back in 2021, they asked me for my documents, and they said, well, we'll see what we can do. And then 4 years later, there was still nothing. I stopped asking them for help. Every time that I get an update, I sent them something. I got no response, not even a visit. They came to visit me only one time. I think twice. I would say twice. And then they did not give me anything. Like if you ever go back, if they did not even give me the heads up of if you ever go back, you will have access to this or that, but nothing. And I did not know what I'm gonna face when if the chance that I got deported. And when I arrived, they issued my travel documents like not long ago. The ICE officers demanded for the form for me to fill out. And after that one, uh, way back in February, they gave me a phone call and I asked them, why don't you guys negotiate my release so that, and then ask for a $20,000 bond that you guys are going to endorse, even though they're not going to be the one who's going to pay for it. So I can actually prepare myself, so I can gather some clothes, belongings, and some food that I can actually take. They said we are not allowed to meddle with the United States government. That's not meddling. That's negotiating. It's like you have a diplomatic relationship with the United States. Why don't you guys talk? I'm not a danger to the society or not a flight risk. Where am I going to go? There's no other country I'm gonna go. I'd rather stay in the United States. And they say, I'm a flight risk now. They said I'm a flight risk by ICE official, labeled me as flight risk by ICE officers or immigration judges. Where am I gonna go? I have no job. How am I going to survive without legal status? If I'm going to run, how am I gonna make money? So how am I gonna be considered as a flight risk? How am I going to pay for housing? Where am I gonna where am I gonna go if I have no car? How am I going to go to work? I got nothing to begin with. And so that kind of presumption that I'm a flight risk, it's just a piece of baloney that they throw in your face.
Yeah.
So for the healthcare, I do not know where to go. I'm just relying on my sister right now and my brother who has
Mhm.
who has cried for me.
Yeah.
They know, my family knows that it's a broken system. They're upset, they're mad, they're angry, but they cannot do anything against something that is big.
Mhm. Yes.
I do not know where I'm gonna go to get medical treatment. We are left to fend for our own healthcare.
Mhm.
There was no directive from the Philippine consulate where to get help.
Yes. No,
And
thank you so
and
much.
and that's it.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Ligaya, for sharing. Kuya Zinar, is there anything, can you please share on your end as well?
Yeah, if I were to speak directly to the Philippine government, I would say urging Filipinos people to go home without addressing what awaits them, and here's not, I mean, not fair and not realistic to be in the Philippines. Returning to the Philippines is like bankruptcy, dead end, nothing. So, and work is scarce, wage are too low and to support the family. And there is no real safety net for people who were forced to leave everything behind. For us, finding livelihood has been one of the hardest parts of coming back, and our families continue to struggle every day. Instead of telling immigrants or migrants to simply return back home, should be provided real support, access to jobs with living wages, livelihood program, and housing healthcare. There should be there should also be counseling and reintegration services to help us rebuild. That's it.
Yes, thank you so much, Kuya. And absolutely, I mean, for the Philippine government to just say, go and voluntarily depart without no services to offer any for jobs, for a house, for a car, of how to have anything. Ligaya even saying once being released, just not having anything. How are you all supposed to fend for yourself when the government, even if they do promise things, you guys haven't seen it at all? And, I think this leads on to our next question for Jom. As we've heard from our speakers today, the Philippine government has done very little to intervene in these cases of detention and deportation. Now there is very little support, if at all, for Filipinos who have returned back home. What does Tanggol Migrante Movement see as a necessary response for the Philippine government?
Yeah, thanks for that, Emily. So first off, speaking on behalf of Tanggol Migrante Movement and Migrante USA, just to put it out there, no, the treatment that we've been getting from the Philippine government thus far is really nothing but neglect, dismissiveness, rudeness, and overall just heartlessness. And Marcos Jr., in fact, was here in the US about a month ago, the Philippine president, but he didn't even make time to meet with the Philippine community. And his ambassador, Romualdez, said that there's quote unquote not much to discuss about immigration. So that's just how low they view the priority that they give to our issues. But yeah, what we are asserting for is really a comprehensive reintegration plan with housing, healthcare, and livelihood. We're hearing from our speakers tonight that they're, struggling from day to day. And also, as the guy was saying, it shouldn't be like a master servant relationship. These Philippine government officials have diplomatic authority. They have diplomatic power that they need to use and need to use now. They need to intervene on behalf of our people and stand up for us instead of just giving in to whatever the US is saying. We're also asserting for humane treatment, due process, and respect for the rights of all Filipinos. And for those that are in this position because of abusive employers or even abusive family members, they need to be checked and held accountable too. And we want assistance to be released immediately. Cut through all the red tape and bureaucracy. Enough of these promises of figures that are at the end, they're just like, sinasabi natin sa Tagalog, parang mga bula na nawawala lang sa hangin. It's just spoken in midair and it amounts to nothing. And lastly, the Philippine government really needs to make actually a comprehensive plan and enact a plan to create jobs and address the economic crisis that our people are in. This economic crisis that is precisely what pushes many of us out of the country. So yeah, maraming salamat.
Thank you, John. Final question for all the speakers that we've had so far. What gives you all motivation to keep fighting? Jane, if you're able to go first.
What gives me more motivation to keep fighting is my mom. First of all, she fought her way to the States and she fought for many years. She was brave, courageous, and she's still not giving up. And also, what's also keeping me strong are the village around me. The new friends I made with this movement and my friends in my life. They're here today supporting me. And that's what's keeping me strong.
Thank you, Jane. Ligaya, if you could go next, what gives you motivation to keep fighting? Oh, and you're on mute, sorry.
I would say the family unit. It's where love begins. And that's the strongest foundation where we grow to become independent and strong human beings. And family is what gives life color and meaning. It is the biggest reason for living. And it is where we learn the basic place where we learn a lot of things. No family is a substitute. No other thing is a substitute for family. Not the government. Everything else disappears when you destroy the family. That's the reason why I'm fighting for family unity. And the United States should not be breaking that apart. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lidaya. And Kuya Zinar, what gives you
Yeah.
motivation to keep fighting?
Mm, the motivation for me to keep fighting is also family. And first and foremost, my family is the most everything to me. And what carries us through even the most painful experience to my life is being a detention and separation and struggling to survive, after coming back to the Philippines. But every day I think about them, and then they are the one who give me a support and a fighting spirit to over this struggling in my life. My family is the best, and I hope one day I can be with them. That's it.
Thank you so much, Kuya, and thank you all for sharing your stories. I will pass it on to John to wrap things up with this press conference. Thank you all so much.
Maraming salamat. So tunay ngang nakaka-inspire. Nakakagalit man pero nakaka-inspire yung pagpupursigi at pagsusumikap ng ating mga speaker, pero maging lahat ng OFW sa buong mundo. So we're gonna just spend, I know we're at the top of the hour, but we're just gonna spend the last couple minutes talking about our next steps and how to get more involved. So here in Tanggol Migrante Movement, we fight for those that are already in the Philippines and for the interest of all the Filipino people. So we've heard, from Lola Bebi's daughter, from Ligaya herself, from Kuya Zanar, and there's also a case from Philadelphia of another deportation of a beloved Filipino mother figure as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. And we also fight for those that are still in detention and that are still, fighting from behind bars. We have Kuya Darren, we have Tito Ernie, Tita and Tita Rebecca. No, all of them are still behind bars, still awaiting their hearings, and they're still fighting. And the community is fighting alongside them, and so is Tanggol Migrante Movement as a whole. If we can go to the next slide, please. And so if you're tuning in for the first time or you're new, new to us, new to our work, how to get more involved, please reach out for support if your loved one is detained or at risk. Please join Tanggol Migrante Movement at tinyurl.com/DMC network. And please support our current campaigns on the ground in Arizona, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Washington State, or wherever Filipinos are at risk and are detained. And that you could find that at tanggolmigrante.org/campaigns. And please register. As was said in the comments, we, as the Filipino people, as brave as we are, we cannot do this alone. So we're, some of our member organizations and Migrante USA itself are also members of what we call the International Migrants Alliance, which is a alliance of, migrant rights and pro-migrant organizations, even from different nationalities. And they will be having a political conference at the end of this month in Portland. So for more information, the flyer's on the screen, but for more information and to register, that's at bit.ly/IMAPolcon, IMAPOLCON. And to contact us, that's our contact information on the screen. We have a hotline. Our website is live. We have a toolkit to help spread the word and share more information about our movement, as well as our official email, for any questions, even if you have feedback about this press conference, or even if you want to, raise concerns about other Filipinos who are at risk or, in fact, already detained. If you can go to the next slide, please. And we want to close out with our points of unity as Tanggol Migrante Movement. We unite to support and defend the rights of migrants, workers, and all those affected by Trump's administration immigration crackdown. We unite to hold governments accountable, including both the US and the Philippines, to fulfill their responsibilities to their people. And we unite to grow this movement by bringing in others to this alliance to defend our communities. And lastly, as the Tanggol Migrante Movement officially launched, we had more than about 50 organizations from across the US, campus-based, religious, healthcare-based, regional, Philippine regional-based. So yeah, all of these different kinds of organizations that are coming together to really fight for our rights and defend our people. So as we've heard from our speakers today, the fight continues. It doesn't stop, once a kababayan is detained, or even if when they're released or deported, the fight continues for a better system overall, and a Philippines that we can actually aspire to go home to, and that we don't have to struggle on the daily just to get by. So we will continue fighting, for the liberation of all our people and for a better Philippines overall. Maraming salamat po and have a good night. Muli, ako po si Jom ng Migrante USA, sa bahagi ng Migrante USA at ng Tanggol Migrante Movement. Muli, nagpapasalamat po kaming lahat sa inyong pagdalo. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good night.